that looked at health and safety. We had the curriculum team, we had food service, transportation, and we had a group of policy as well. And we were reporting out all along the way. We could not move this process any faster in getting some guidance from the governor as well. And so we have been able to take what we learned through those work groups, and we compiled a presentation for you today. So we're going to take you an overview of what we had proposed as our Plan B. Keep in mind that Plan A, returning to school in a normal situation, was not on the table from our governor, and that Plan C is a move to remote learning for all students. Part of the caveat for option B was that you also had to provide remote learning opportunities for students, for parents that did not want to return their children to school. So in addition to working through a hybrid type model for bringing kids back, you also were required to run a remote school at the same time. So Renee, or Yvette, if you could bring that up. I think you'll find on your desk the presentation copy, so you're not strained to look at the same time.
Can I ask a question before we begin?
Sure.
Does this include information about students wearing masks?
That is part of this.
Okay.
So I just gave you the outline of how things work. So we also talked to others in the region, both locally and in the Northeast region and outside the region. I tried to find some comparative school districts that looked like us, made similar decisions, that type of thing as well. Reached out to those superintendents to gather information. We used the guidance from Lighting Our Way Forward, North Carolina's guidebook for reopening schools. You'll find that on our website. We also used the Strong Schools North Carolina Public Health Toolkit, along with the Albemarle Regional Health Services. And we had input from our district leadership, central services, principals, teachers, staff, and parents. Can we go to the next one? Go to section 1. That one. All right. Right here on page 3, you will find Plan A, which is a typical return to school. Plan B, schools will operate with 6 feet social distancing in classrooms. Other areas of the building, students and teachers will participate in a hybrid model of instruction. Students will be divided into cohorts, Group A and Group B. They will rotate for in-person instruction in school. This is the model that we had proposed, which we are proposing that on A day, kids would go to school on Monday and Tuesday in Group A. They would have remote learning on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday would be a deep clean of the school, along with professional development for teachers and time for them to plan. Thursday and Friday would be Group B. At that time, they would come in and they would receive their instruction in person. One of the challenges in this process is keeping the schools clean, and we'll get into that later. Placing kids on buses, and we'll touch on that in transportation. Plan C was we moved to a full online model, and Plan D is in line with, is attached to Plan B. So Plan D, to do Plan B, I'll have to offer Plan B. So we had to offer an online model at the same time that we're offering in-person instruction in the schools. Next slide. Okay. We had done some surveying of our staff and parents before this model came out. So understand that before the governor made his declaration that you will use B or C, we did staff survey and we surveyed our parents as well. So one of the questions we asked was, I or a member of my household fall into one of the categories identified by the CDC as being at high risk for serious complications from the pandemic. 41% of our staff answered yes, 58.9% answered no. These are what a high risk employee is: 1, age 65 or older, or 2, have a documented high-risk condition that includes chronic lung disease or moderate to severe asthma, heart disease with complications, a compromised immune system, severe obesity with body mass index of 40 or higher, or other underlying medical conditions particularly if not well controlled, such as diabetes, renal failure, or liver disease. So we had 41%. Now, do we know that that is 100% accurate? We do not, but it was certainly a starting point for us to try to make some decisions.
So that was them or the member of the family?
Them or a member of the family. So you may be the caretaker and identifying yourself as you're caring for your mother or your grandmother who is 82 years old. And so they're identifying that regard.
Now, these are any employees or teachers or?
These, I believe, were, we did two separate surveys. I don't want to, so one involved certified staff and others involved classified staff. I do not know if we combined that for this graph.
Did everybody participate in the survey?
We had, of the certified, and we included in the certified the TAs and so on, we had 341. So this out of 400, that's a great return.
Really?
Wow.
So if you look at the bottom and the next graph, of those with health concerns, how many prefer to teach students remotely? Not did you prefer to teach, but if you had a health concern. And you'll see that those numbers, our largest building is the high school, there's 16 identified there. Again, that's not confirmed. This is self-identification. This is without going through any level of documentation and saying, you do in fact have a qualifying condition. And you can see a pretty steady number of 7 across the others. Next slide.
So these would be not teaching face-to-face, but if they're teaching remotely, or is this, they wouldn't have?
This would be, so if you weren't in person, you could teach remotely from your house. This, if you were someone with a condition,
Okay.
one of the conditions that we outlined, that would be a permissible at-home teaching.
But if you could choose to teach remotely and be in your classroom to teach remotely, yes, no?
Can you ask that again, Ms. Kraft?
Yes. So if someone didn't have those situations but still felt uncomfortable with face-to-face, would they be able to do remote but do it on-site without face-to-face?
Yeah, from the classroom.
From the
Under
classroom.
under option B, that would not be possible. Because we would need all the classroom space in B to do that.
Okay.
That would only be applicable under option C.
Okay.
When you don't have movement of kids, but you would only have a single adult in the room. I think it would be fair to say that would be an expectation that you would teach in person unless you had something that absolutely precluded you from coming in the building because you were at such risk. And I can't think of several teachers that would fall into there, but that number is much smaller.
Okay.
We added this graph in as well. This is a separate piece. This should be on your table there. Considering, again, this was asked prior to governor's announcements. So I want to say that in each one. So you can see on here that we had 17% of people were unsure. About 15% of people said they prefer online. 2.5% said no attendance in paper packets, 45% face-to-face, and 20% preferred a hybrid model. Lower that screen a little bit. Keep going. We also broke this down by school. And you can see by identification in each building. So at the high school, between unsure, packets, and online, you're pushing 30% in that particular building or in that direction, about 45. And you can see in the face-to-face, our highest percentage across the district was 54%. So again, painting a difficult decision that you have to arrive at today, that we have to arrive at together around the complexity of this choice and the choices that we've been given is that there's no, this data shows that there's no definitive piece at this point.
What would the hybrid model be?
The hybrid model is the one we're proposing under option B. So we had asked the face-to-face question prior
I see.
to, prior to the announcement.
So basically, prior to the announcement, 45% of the people that took the survey preferred face-to-face learning,
Yes.
and 20%, 20.83, 21% preferred a hybrid model. Right?
Which would be 65% that
Well,
want.
if you added it all together, yes, ma'am, I was just showing you that overwhelmingly, 21% wanted a hybrid model, and 45% wanted to go to school.
Every day. But
Correct.
we don't have that.
I just wanted to point that out, that that's what our data showed.
Yeah.
I didn't say we had the choice, we didn't have the choice, I just wanted to articulate the information as factual.
And we have roughly 15 to 20% from each school that was unsure.
And I think it's safe to say that everyone in this room would prefer that our kids are back in the building in a traditional classroom and learning. We're getting ready for a regular school year. This is not where any of us wanted to be,
No.
certainly not where I would think. All right, next one. So this is under Plan B. We're recommending a 2-day in-person, a 3-day remote learning weekly rotation model for pre-K to 12. It's important that the entire district is included, not some districts you may have seen said high school is going to go straight online or middle school and high school. Every piece that you do comes with difficulties. Students will be grouped into 2 cohorts by family last name. And if it's not the same last name, it will be by address. When students are not in the school building on their assigned days, they will work in a remote environment. Wednesdays will be remote learning day for all students. Sanitizing will take place, and this schedule will repeat each week. Under Plan B, we reserve the right where class sizes are small and health safety are not compromised to accommodate more students in a school or class. And we will reevaluate the schedule and operations on an ongoing basis. I think no matter what is decided upon today, we will be constantly reevaluating in an effort to get our kids back to the most normalized learning environment and to identify any improvements that we can make at any point in time that make sense and that are good for kids. Go ahead. This is a visual of the hybrid schedule. Go ahead, keep going. Just another way to look at it, and we can post this online. You see there's a group A, there's a group B. I want to point out as well that you would not have synchronous learning. Synchronous being teacher is live. If you're teaching in this model and you're in A, the kids that are in AA are not going to get a live teacher on Thursday, Friday at the same time that teacher is working with B. We would like to move to a synchronous model, but we can't get to that point right out of the gate. Does that make? In other words, we're not asking our teachers, you can't do both things
Yeah,
simultaneously.
because if they're introducing a new concept on Monday and working with it on Tuesday, then Thursday they have to introduce that new concept and work with them with the other group.
To the other-
Basically, they'll be left on their own half the time.
Well,
I mean, I'm not trying to be critical, but that's what it seems like, is that
Initially, they're going to get work that support whatever learning is taking place on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. That work, they should be doing supplemental work after that, and then we need to move into new learning, but we are not prepared
yes, sir.
to do that.
I just want to be clear. They're gonna have to introduce new work on Monday and Tuesday, but then they're gonna have to also introduce the work on
Are they
the
gonna
other
have any
rotation
kind
of
of-
students on Thursday and Friday.
Are they gonna have any kind of office hours?
They will. So let us go back to Mr. Craddock's question, and that's a great point. Under Plan B and the restrict and the requirements under the guiding the documents as it say provided, we have to keep our capacity numbers at or around 50%. Thereby, we have to limit the number of kids that can be in, creating an entire level of complexity that schools never had to deal with before.
Yes, but
That's not where we stay.
Right. So, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, continue
Let me,
on.
on Monday, like say A group, the high school, there's still gonna be 90-minute periods, right?
Correct.
So the kids would still get, new information. They would also have guided learning and lead it into independent learning in that one 90-minute period, right?
In theory, yes.
Well, my question is, if they were going to do it this way, why would they not teach like they normally would Monday, Tuesday, obviously Wednesday's a cleaning day, but Thursday and Friday? Why would they not have that going on in the classroom for whatever the subject matter was on that day? They're remoting in live while they're teaching whatever they teach on Monday and then Tuesday. And when it flips, why are they not continuing to teach new material Thursday and Friday? And to flip, the other students are remoting in, watching it live. I don't understand why I don't understand this.
That's a great question. We need to move to a synchronous model. We can't do it on August 17th
Why not?
because we have to make sure we have the equipment. We have to get that first group of kids. We don't want to start that first group of kids off. The Thursday kids,
Yes, sir.
having never met their teacher before, we need to use this time initially to find out who our kids are, build that relationship, and move towards a synchronous model, which is exactly what you're saying. We just can't. The challenges on the teaching end of this can be overwhelming, and so we want to do it well, not piecemeal.
So if we go with this plan, students that wish, well, some are going to be eligible to do online because of health concerns.
Correct.
Who's going to teach them?
So that would come from the group of teachers that identified.
I see.
One of the problems is that the number of teachers that identified, and again, this is not verified, but the numbers don't match.
They don't know.
They don't align, and that the lack of synchronicity between the two creates problems, especially, I would say, at the high school level, more so than any place else where you have discrete classes, and how that would affect. Great question. We'll get the next one. So under health and safety, we have to conduct, we have to conduct daily symptom and temperature screening and checks for all staff, students, and any person who enters the building. We have to have entry points where you're screened. We have to follow social distancing protocols, which will require for anyone who enters the buildings. And this answers the question regarding masks. Dr. Dovney, all students must wear face coverings K-12 in school and on school buses. All staff and adult visitors must wear cloth face coverings in school buildings and offices.
What is the difference?
Obviously, these people have never dealt with kindergarten, first grade kids, because I can't imagine them wearing a face mask all day. Or 11th or 12th grade. And who's going to monitor what, they got to do if the kid takes their mask off.
Right. Well, what is going to happen to the kids that take the mask off?
The question?
What is the difference in face coverings and cloth face coverings?
The state is going to provide to all the school districts 5 cloth face coverings for students to wear and to wash.
But
I know my son would leave his in the locker room.
well, this says must wear face coverings. Is a shield permissible?
Yes, it could be.
Okay.
So what happens to the kids that don't keep their face covering on? Let's just say not every place in the county, but some of these bus runs for an hour to an hour and a piece in the morning and the afternoon, and you add in the rest of the educational day. So we're talking 10 to 11 hours for some of these students with a face covering.
I read something somewhere where they could take a break and pull it down.
What I'm saying is, what happens when one of them or several of them, they don't have it on anymore? My question is, what's what are we gonna do then?
Well, we're gonna play a game.
Which one?
We're gonna pretend we're tigers and we put our mask on if you're in kindergarten. I mean, we
Okay.
have to cross that bridge when we get to it. I mean,
I just wanted to know what people should be in for to expect.
we don't know that yet, probably.
That's correct.
Okay, so we don't know what we're gonna do to the kids that don't keep their mask on.
Well, obviously, we're not gonna punish them for not having it on. We're
Okay.
just gonna, I mean, I would not think that we were gonna
Well,
do that.
I think it
Okay.
says you must wear a mask to come to school. So if
Well,
you're not wearing a
right,
mask,
you're
you
gonna
can't come to
ask them
school.
to do
Well, wait
it,
a
right?
minute.
You're gonna
But
say,
does it
put
say
it
you
back
must wear a
on.
mask to go home from school?
What?
It says on buses, you must wear.
Yeah.
Okay, so
On buses.
what I'm, all right.
So if they don't want to wear the mask, they can't be in school, basically, according to the governor's plan.
According to the outline of
And
this plan.
so would the parents be expected to, be responsible and come get them when that
Probably.
doesn't happen?
I'd say so.
Is
If
that,
they're not, I mean, if they're not.
I don't know.
Defiant
I would
about
say
it,
if they're-
yes.
If they're
you
not
tell 'em-
complying with the rules that are set in place, then they would be asked to go to the office and their parent would be able to pick them up.
okay,
And this is what the governor has set forth.
Right, this
is-
isn't optional.
It is next to impossible to operate a school day within these parameters.
okay.
But
Extremely challenging.
it is.
Let's
Put it nicely.
let's go back to daily symptom temperature screenings, checks for all staff, students, and any person who enters the building. My question is, who's doing that? And is that, I'm assuming that's on every student, so the parents need to be aware that that's happening, because if they're not comfortable with that, they might be comfortable with the mask possibly, or they might not. But what I'm getting at is, parents need to understand that their student, their child will conduct daily symptom temperature screening checks every day.
Did you say this was placed on our website, Matt?
Excuse me.
This plan is that the governor has instituted is placed on our website, what we have to do?
The,
Light
the
it
lighting our
up.
way document is on the website, yes.
And
This
that,
is not.
that talks about it. We would have to get somebody to do it. And I mean, it doesn't take long, believe it or not. I went out to eat last night and the restaurant had one. Just shoots it at your
Well,
forehead.
You're talking about
this-
like 500 kids, if you're bringing in half of them at the high school, 350 at.
Well-
It took 15 minutes
So
to
where I'm
screen
getting at
out.
is, did they all kind of stop right there at the school bus and do this, and then they wait?
Well,
And how does
we
this
have-
work?
And then
Talks
they
down.
have to be.
We have to put that in place.
How does this work?
We have to put it in place.
How?
It's new.
I know.
The teachers will work it out.
I'm trying to get people other than myself to understand how this is going to happen.
Well, one
To
of the things-
see if they're comfortable with this.
One of the
Because,
things that was discussed was that the bus drivers would be the ones that did the temperature checks, and that the parent would have to be out there if they were under
Yeah.
a certain age, so that they would need to, they couldn't get on the bus.
holy smokes.
And
That would extend
Lose
the.
track, I held my head the same way when I read that.
well,
Are you kidding me?
there's something in there recommending, or I don't know if it was recommending or saying that we had to have an additional adult on the bus.
That is correct, which would be an additional expense because we pay for someone to ride the bus as well, which we try to keep this possible.
And that person would help with the temperature checks.
Okay, that brings up another question. How much more is version B gonna cost than just going with version C? Option B, how much more is it gonna cost? Does anybody know?
Do not have a hard dollar amount on that yet, Mr.
I
Pratt.
can give you an hourly rate if y'all want.
Hourly rate?
For bus
Yeah.
drivers.
Yeah.
Our bus monitors make $14.25 an hour. So however long that bus is riding, we're paying $14.25 an hour per bus monitor.
Yeah, okay,
Buses.
that's not what I mean.
Yeah, like Will keeps saying too, the length of our bus runs, and if you stop and take the temperature of every kid getting on that bus and asking the questions, you know, you're
Well, so
gonna.
You're gonna have to have a bus monitor on every bus. How
I
many
wasn't
bus
just
runs?
talking about, excuse me,
routes?
the cost of the bus run.
I know you
I'm
weren't.
talking about employing this whole thing where you have all these other things.
I don't think we know that yet, but Matt said earlier, I asked him, and I believe he said he'd spent $40,000 on supplies to keep your kids safe with sanitizer and things like that already.
Okay, well, the CDC, the one that we're gonna follow, you know, trying to keep our children safe, says that we lost 30 students, 30 kids, infant to 14 in the nation as COVID-19.
Well,
Just point that out.
One's too many.
CDC.
One's too.
Oh, agree, but we lost 190 to influenza last year and 586
I
to
realize that.
suicide.
I realize that,
Okay,
but
yes, ma'am.
if we lost a student in Currituck County, one, that would be one too many in my eyes. I'm not looking at numbers, I'm not looking at percentages, I'm looking at the safety and well-being of every student in Currituck County.
That's why I'm starting to wonder if this hybrid model is really safe or is it not safe?
well.
I'm trying to figure out, is it good or is it not good? Is it really safe for the kids to be wearing a mask that long?
Or are they going to, and what
Yes, that's
do,
safe.
and the length of the bus runs? To me,
It's
to
not.
me, if you're looking at the safety, teachers and students, it would be better, you know, to wait and do the online learning now, and then if we can implement this going down the road, if we find out that there would be a safer way to do it. But there's too many unknowns to me, and your school day is gonna be drastically cut short from
And so
all these
what I'm hoping
regulations.
is
That,
a medicine worse than the disease? You know, in this instance, I'm not trying to be critical. I realize there's a lot of unknowns and restraints, but I'm starting to look at this and go, okay, so what happens if a teacher or a child tests positive?
then everybody in that room has to go home
Wait a
for
minute, do
14
we
days.
shut the whole school down?
They have to go home.
Well-
It has an exponential effect potentially, Mr. Craddock, when someone tests positive, when you retrace them through their bus, or through their classroom, and all the people that were in contact with following guidelines.
So
Take an example, if a kid is on the A route or A schedule, and their parents take them to a birthday party on Saturday afternoon with, you know, and then Monday, they get to school about 12 o'clock, they start having a fever and the symptoms, and then we have a hot mess.
So if the teacher tests positive, do they have to take sick leave or how does that work?
Yes?
Okay.
And then we have to find a teacher to fill that class as
So
well.
would they have to use the sick leave for COVID-19?
Just as you would for the flu or whatever.
Okay.
Well, all the kids in the room would probably have to be tested also, right?
Yeah.
And then they
Well-
go into quarantine.
So
And then
They quarantine to see if they show symptoms.
Here's one thing I think we should think about. Because I think there's gonna be a tremendous amount of people, not aligning themselves with this way of thinking. That's my opinion, maybe I'm wrong. But I think you're gonna find that there's gonna be a tremendous amount of people, homeschooling or wanting to homeschool. Because now you're talking about at least 3 days a week that they gotta be home, they can't be at work versus 5 days a week.
Well,
So
we cannot help that.
hold on a minute. So my suggestion is, we take some of these instructional coordinators or some of these other department people and try to see if we can work with them with some type of online homeschool, something or another, but they don't leave the system. Because when they leave the system, what's gonna happen is that money is gonna get tighter and tighter. The ADM from the state and the local and the federal is going away. And what that means is then the pool of people that are left, it costs a lot more money per student to educate. It's kind of like flood insurance. When they can't pay, when they can't make it solvent, they expand the flood map, requiring more participation. So before we have a mass exodus, I suggest we get creative and see if we can work on something along those lines. Because these students that I'm hearing around the county, and maybe I'm getting bad information, don't end up back in the school system, we're not just gonna be facing these challenges, but we're gonna be facing these challenges and more expense to do this with less money. That's what I'm fearful
Well,
of.
here's
Why would
what I
people,
think.
why
I
would
think a
people
lot of people,
homeschool?
well, that's just it. I think
You don't
people
think it's the same
use the
thing that we're
term
gonna want?
homeschool very lightly. When someone says, well, I'm just gonna homeschool my daughter or my son, I don't think they realize what's involved with homeschooling. I mean, still there's expectations with homeschooling and curriculum and things that you have, guidelines that you have to follow. And I think with our teachers and our staff, you know, if we went remotely, they have teams that have been in place all along since March that would have a plan in place for the virtual learning, if that's the route the board wanted to go. But it wouldn't be like we had in March, because in March, this hit us like a ton of bricks a week.
Yes,
Three
ma'am.
days.
Well, let me just, I don't know this to be true, but I was told this today during some of the conversations I was having about it. And I was told that the state's homeschool webpage crashed yesterday, as there was that many people.
Oh, I'm
on
sure,
looking at it.
because people.
So all I'm saying is that I had 2 students in the system when this happened. Now, one of them was in elementary school, and he had interaction through that device with not only his teacher, but his classmates. And even though it wasn't exactly the same thing, it was much different than what my other son had in the middle school. Okay, very mild, if any, direct communication between this instructor and no interaction with any of their peers.
And you,
And so there's a lot of people that are concerned about that.
sure.
There's a lot of people that are concerned about wearing a mask all day. And there's a lot of people concerned about these things, and that's how I formed this list. This isn't just the stuff I thought of. This is stuff that I'm talking to people that are telling me, hey, what are you gonna do about this? Hey, what are you gonna do about that? And I mean, even my son, he's like, Dad, how are they gonna social distance on the bus? And I have to say, that ain't pretty good, son. I'm not sure how they're gonna do that, because even if they only do one in the seat, that's still not 6 foot apart. So, I mean, who are we kidding ourselves? I know the rules in the governor's order. I'm not necessarily liking most of it. And I don't think no matter what side of the political aisle you fall, I think there's concerns from both. And they're very legitimate. And so what I'm saying is, I don't think I found one person that finds this to be workable.
This is not a good plan, but it's the best, it's all we've got to deal with.
Well, it's the best plan if we're gonna go with hybrid, but that's not what we have to do.
Yeah.
So the option is gonna be B or C.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna deviate a little bit from here, because it sounds like it may be a good time to jump away from this. So we have to provide a better online model. The circumstances that we had to jump into in mid-March were not ideal. We did not provide strong guidelines as a state or internally. We were trying to do our best to respond to something that we hadn't responded to. But we know that we do have to provide a better product for our community, and that we know that we can deliver a better product through a cohesive plan and expectations that are laid out with both our principals, with our central services, with our entire community, with our students, and with our staff. Things that can be expected would be synchronous learning, which would mean that you get a lot of time with your teacher. That would be an expectation, not if you can get there. There needs to be guided reading at the elementary level. There needs to be interaction at the secondary level. There needs to be a schedule for kids to adhere to. We cannot be loose. We also, at the same time, that synchronous lesson would be recorded for that kid or that family that needs to go back and look at it. And so you wouldn't, if you missed your 9 to 9:50 time slot, you aren't in the dark. You can go back to it, because there are challenges that our families will have to face if we choose to go remote that are Very, very difficult.
I think they're gonna face some, no matter which model, particularly from the people that, have a hard time, with both parents or a single parent working. So whether it's 3 days or it's 5, and I know at the end of the day, I mean, what's really getting ready to happen here, in my opinion, is a social divide. No matter which way you slice it, there's gonna be people that are gonna put forward the extra effort, or they're gonna be able to, or they're gonna put forward the extra money, and they're gonna be able to, and there's gonna be those that are not. And what this thing's getting ready to do is gonna put ripples in the pond that we will be, very sorry we see in years to come. And, I can't wait until about, November 15th, and all this stuff hopefully will just go away. Because, I really believe that, and I'm so sad that we are going to let this chaos destroy so many lives.
I think the question is, what our children would get from this plan B is they would get 2 days at school.
Correct.
And the question we have to answer with a lot of rules there, is that going to benefit them over 5 days at home with remote learning? And I think about the children where school is their saving grace. And as you said, they don't get the support at home, so all of our children don't. I worry about them. I worry about the K-2 early readers.
But school's not gonna look like
The high school
what it looks like.
shop class, the nursing class at the high school, things that are next to impossible to teach remotely. So I guess what we have to weigh is 2 days better than nothing?
Well, I think we also, I just got a text from a nurse friend of mine who said, we really need to remember that there are lots of people who are walking around with COVID who are showing no
Yeah.
symptoms. So how many of those are gonna be coming in our schools?
And I talked to Dr. Betts at the Regional Health Department this morning. You're right, a lot of folks do have COVID, but they don't even know it. They're not really sick. He said 80% of the people that get it have got like sinus symptom or little gastro symptom. They don't even know. It's not,
But those people that they're
but 20%
contacted,
can really, really, really get sick. What would be the plan? I know our elementary teachers, certainly, they can probably adapt more online than the content courses at the high school level. But what about people like our speech pathologist and our school psychologist and the support teachers, Title I? How will we utilize them with online instruction?
So, great question, Ms. Rose. So, we had to turn in a remote learning plan to the state, and Sandy Reynolds led that work along with leads from across the district, included the very people you're speaking of. And some of those people, groups like your title and your speech, they did outstanding work during the last, in spring.
So they continue
Oh my goodness gracious, they did,
remotely,
oh yes.
face-to-face
They
kind of?
did a lot of groups, one-to-one reading, spent a lot of time. I know some teachers that work 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, meet, and so they were flexible to meet their kids where they were at and their needs. And I know that we had the same thing going on with our speech services. Miss Jamie Miller helped lead that work, and they were very creative in terms of how they were going to get those services. So
I know a lot of their kids need those services.
we learned a lot, and so while we can focus on some of the negatives that came up, the inconsistencies, the lack of standardization in the instruction, there still was a lot of really good work that came out of it that we can use to guide our work moving forward. And those groups are all outlined in our remote learning plan.
So did you tell me earlier that if we go to remote learning, that the teachers will be at school and remote teaching for the day?
So the expectation, if the boards will, my recommendation would be that if at all possible, meaning that you aren't at risk. And if you were at risk, you may have the option, you could just go straight to your room. But if you don't fall into a high-risk category, the expectation to me would be that you would be teaching from the school building because you are already you're social distancing in your classroom.
And you have your materials there, you have the things that you can pull.
And it provides that daily structure that was missing as well. Through,
So they would get more than paper packets.
correct.
If they have the online capability at home.
So to that end, we have made sure that all of our, I want to be, on August 17th, we may not have all of our Chromebooks for all of our students at that point in time because there has been some delays in the supply in the manufacturing chain, but we're not far from it. We also have identified part of that plan says teachers will know who is lacking access or needs a device or doesn't have Wi-Fi at home. We also set up, we've bought Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi's for our kids. We have them, they're accessible. We've identified all of that in the spring with the thinking that we might be here again. So we have identified that. We've identified those problems and we have purchased the devices and we will be able to get that in people's hands.
2.5% though,
Okay.
we're all that preferred no attendance and paper packets, so that would be, that would be.
My question would be, who's going to train parents of like the elementary students if they don't know how to buy? So
I think our parents had a huge learning curve, and I hate to say it that way, like we all did. I didn't know how to use Google Meets. Did anyone here know how to use it before?
No.
No, and now we all do. I mean, at the same time, we can be very proactive, and to me, in addition to our expectations for our staff, there's going to be expectations for our students, and about when you're there and how you engage. And I think we started to set some of those, but we can be just as clear around those expectations.
I saw in here, remotely, kids would be signed in by 9 o'clock.
We've captured the attendance component in here. I think it's important that pieces of this remote plan be shared out with our school improvement teams and our principals and so on, so they see it as well. It's something to respond to. They don't have to start from scratch. So if we do go that route of remote learning, we already have a framework for them to respond to.
speaking of remote learning again, I know that there's Zoom where they can see the teacher and the teacher can see, interact with all the kids, right?
Yes,
Now, can the kids interact with each other on that?
they can. We started on a document, we'll make it look prettier, of basically terms like asynchronous breakout rooms is what you're speaking of. Chrome browser, copyright, dojo, so that we know what terms we're even talking about. I didn't know which term, what's the term we hold, the kid can raise their hand. Because we all know that we talk over each other in the meeting. So, I mean, there are pieces we captured as much as we could, and we saw that we could do a whole lot better in the spring.
Are we gonna have one method?
Google Classroom will be what we like.
Well, because Zoom there was some real issues with that.
People breaking into the.
Yeah.
Zoom is not secure and it has we have privacy issues with students under the age of 18.
Yeah, it has some costs.
It can be easier, but we can't go there.
I know, speaking with Dr. Bitts this morning, he said cases are going to happen. They are going to happen. And I inquired, Currituck's case count has ticked up in the last week or so. And I was told prior to it ticking up, Currituck did not have a testing site. We have just started testing at the health department, and when you start making testing more accessible, the numbers go up,
I think it's got 99.35% of recovery rate. We got
Yeah, and that's what, you said, but
99.35. All right, so I'm just trying to figure out, is all that, because you started out initially with an hour bus ride, and we're assuming now it's reduced to 50% capacity, and you're doing all the testing. Hopefully it will still be, maybe not much more than an hour, but I can see how it could go either way. I doubt it would be much shorter, because you're going to cover the same amount of distance, because some of these kids might not live right next door to alphabetical sequence, so you might find yourself actually, covering some real distance with the busing. So I see that as a problem. I see a lot of it as a problem, and I'm just trying to figure out, are they gonna get a better shape, the kids, with the remote every day with a teacher? Or are they gonna be better served with 2 days? And then off Wednesday, and then 2 days remote anyways? I'm just looking at this going, it just doesn't add up for me as a parent.
Well,
It
it's
doesn't add up.
not, it's
And I
not
can't speak
easy,
for everyone.
but
Well,
parents want them to go back to school.
I do, I think they do, but I think they want them to go back to school like normal. I don't think they want them to go back to school like we're recommending.
Well, we have no choice. It's either this way or none at all.
We do have a choice. We can say for the first 9 weeks that we do remote and that we'll visit it as needed.
No, I'm saying if we're going back to school,
yeah.
it's this way or no other way, because this is what the governor's laid out.
When we started our work group, I so we planned for A and C because B is very difficult.
Right.
We had a duty too to prepare this, to give this
Yeah,
board an option and see how this would play out at the same time.
Well, you're saying 50% of our schools throughout the state have already decided to go. Did you say about 50%?
When I looked at it, it was about 50 schools had already turned in their plans. About half were B, half were C, and there was about 10 others that were like, we're going B for a week and then we're going to C. And so there was, but at that same time, some of those districts have already flipped from choosing B and went to C.
And you and I asked you about the tourism at areas, because, you know, we fall into that category. And most of those people, I think you and I had said, looked like they were now leaning towards C.
This region is largely
Right,
good.
so we-
So Terrell, Dare, are C. Camden's going to vote tomorrow night. They have a discussion. That's for their board to decide as well. But we've been in discussions trying to do you see this problem? Do you see, where is it? I'm not sure. Elizabeth City's going to decide as well. Bertie went C. Hertford is having a meeting right now. For Quinlan's went B. I think Hyde did,
But they're little teeny.
Fine.
I did the,
Hyde did B. They have 560 total kids. That's a true number. So.
I know how important it is to have kids in school.
But to me, there's too many unknowns.
But this way,
I'd rather be safe
Yeah.
than sorry. Would rather start out with C and then reassess. You know, just for the safety of our students and our teachers.
Then to go with
I'll be honest
B
with
and
you.
then have to
Because there's
reassess.
too many unknowns for me.
I'm like you. I think what we're gonna see is we're not gonna see school and education like we want to see.
Yeah.
I think this is a precursor
beginning of the end.
for Google and Microsoft to roll out this virtual learning. And unfortunately, I don't mean this to sound negative, but I think in a few years, you'll find that teaching positions become slimmer.
Yeah.
It's kind of like employees at stores with self-checkout, and they're rolling out this thing, and I don't wish it. I do not want my kids to deal with this, and I don't want anybody's kids. But it's a mess, and I don't think, I just don't want my kids having to ride the bus and look at other kids through a mask and buy into or perpetuate all this additional anxiety and fear that they already have as youngsters. I'm not in favor of that.
Could we go with C and revisit every 4 weeks?
We could. I think so Beaufort County chose to revisit every 4 weeks. That's the only one I saw that most said 9 weeks.
That's recommended in here to have it, whatever plan you go with, it needs to be fluid and ready to change at the moment's notice.
And I feel confident, as we're allowed to say, that we need to do that. We absolutely have to do that. We need to be fluid. To me, when there's a problem, you don't need to wait a year or 3 months to fix it. You do your best to get ahead of it. This will not go off the way it's perfect out of the get-go, because of the lack, because of the amount of confusion, the lack of clarity that we received from the state. And due to we only have so many people. So we have tapped every resource in the area as well. We talked to Pitt, we talked to our large districts that have a lot of resources. We borrow, but we'll get there. I just don't want to create an expectation on the 17th things will be perfect. But I think that we'll get gradually better and better and have a product that we can be proud of, that our kids can get an online education that's quality. I do believe that we can achieve that.
It's all the other, it's the social, it's the mental.
It is, but they're not gonna get that.
No, I know they're not.
The way
I know
it
that.
would be.
But it's bad. B is bad. It's not
Want your
good.
child wearing a mask for
No,
7 hours a
I
day?
don't, and I don't. I just want us to come back as quickly as we can.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't want us to say, oh, we'll reevaluate in January, or we'll reevaluate 1/4 of the year through. I want us to reevaluate monthly. I do.
I would rather go 9 weeks because of all the unknowns that came up today. And that would give us at least a chance to plan and answer some of these questions about, if they still require masks, what are you gonna do to get takes a mask off, or how long is it going to take to get these kids on the bus, and all this testing, going, and, there's just too many unknowns, and I think at the end of 9 weeks, it will give us a better idea.
I also
So
think
we can plan.
I'm in favor of that, but I would really appreciate that we would make a concentrated effort, as you just indicated, to make sure that we have some actual interaction with the student and the teacher every single day. Because if we can't do that, then we really also need to be thinking about how to facilitate with the people that are gonna homeschool, because there's gonna be people. And if we could figure out a way to have a person, a liaison, to keep them from totally not unenrolling, and we could somehow facilitate that.
I've had one parent ask if we could team up with online teaching with this North Carolina, Virginia K-12. Do you know anything about that?
We've used North Carolina Virtual Public Schools. I've worked with different online programs. You still have a variation in the level of service that you get. I think one thing, by having centralized, if we were approaching this with a plan, things that say record attendance in PowerSchool using Google Meet attendance extension for synchronous lessons, provide synchronous learning opportunities using Google Meet with student interaction built in. Use Google Classroom. So we did not have this established in the spring. So going back to that, we can standardize, and Mr. Craig, you've talked about this for several years, and I've done several board presentations about our need for a student getting 3rd grade math. That Jarvisburg needs to get that same 3rd grade quality math at Knott's Island, at Shawbrook, Modoc, at Central, at Griggs. And it needs, and the same thing across our middle school. So this is an opportunity to improve as much as anything. And then when we move back, and I can't wait till the day we move back into the classrooms, we pick right up.
And I agree with you that there will be people that will say, oh, we're gonna homeschool, but I've seen that in my 25 years, and you have too, of teaching, and they find out it's not so easy, it's not, all it cracked up to be, and some of them will stay with it, but the greatest majority will be more than glad when things get back to normal, that their kids can come back to school and have a social
I just think
situation.
the more positive interactions we can provide our students, whether it be virtual or face-to-face, there's a lot of kids that need that.
What you had just mentioned about, making sure like 3rd grader at, Jarvisburg gets the same 3rd grade math as they do at Knott's Island. Is somebody gonna be monitoring pacing guides as they're used through the virtual learning?
Yes.
Let me read what we have here. Plan high-quality lessons aligned to content standards using state and local pacing guides. So we have been thinking about how we can provide a better online, and at the same time that we were working in B, we were also charged to have a remote component to this. So we have been trying to spin 2 plates at once.
And last year, our teachers thrown into this, and their assistants, their support folks,
Everybody.
they, for the most part, they did a great job. They worked hard, doing the best they could, but there definitely is room for improvement. Now, what about, are all of their employees, their positions going to be safe if we go to virtual learning?
We are live on camera, and so we have not gone through that whole thing. The intention would be, and I'm gonna grab just to give you an idea of how thoughtful some of this work has been. Related service providers will, AIG consulting teachers will, specials and elective teachers will, English language learner teachers will, Title I and reading recovery, counselors will, teacher assistants will, instructional coaches and digital learning coaches will, media coordinators will, technology department staff will, data management staff will, secretaries will, nurses will, custodians will, bus drivers will, food service staff will, maintenance staff. So when you're going, how the bus drivers, we're still gonna have to feed our kids.
What about nurses?
Nurses?
Yeah,
They
I
will-
know you said so.
No,
So
I
what will
wasn't
they do? How will they help their students and nurses?
They might be the ones.
They can teach help.
I think we can get creative around how we.
Dr. Lee?
Yes, go ahead, Virginia.
The nurses check in with students that have chronic health care plans, check on their well-being, make sure that they're getting the resources they need. And they also work with them on health education.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I mean, basically, we have to do what companies do when they repurpose for a short time. You had automotive companies making ventilators. Now some people that might have been driving a bus will have to do something slightly different. It's called repurposing. We're a business. We're trying to provide a high level of education.
Cafeteria?
Service to.
Well, they jumped right in.
Yes, ma'am, and that's what I'm saying. That was
Yeah,
repurpose.
exactly.
And that's what I'm saying that we have to do. And I would like to say that, I do know that everybody was thrown into it. And I don't think that anybody, intentionally wants anything like this going on. But it would be nice to have some type of, if we could look into it, and it might be too much, I don't know, but we're gonna need something, some supplements or something. Or the recorded version, like you mentioned, for the parent to go back and assist their children. We didn't have those things before. I know we were shortchanged on the window of time. We were learning, but we didn't have enough supplements, in my opinion, prior to. So I just want to say, I know it's tough. I know it's unfortunate. We really got to think outside the box on this one, because if we don't, you think we got people that got IEPs and all kinds of other struggling issues now? You wait until after this goes on for a while, and you're going to see the need surge. And so there are going to be people that talk about homeschooling that won't homeschool, but there are going to be some people that say, hey, I had to spend X number of dollars for pre-K, and I had to spend X number of dollars for childcare. And then get pulled together with a few people, the next thing you know, 5 or 6 of them hired their own teacher. So there are going to be unique situations, reactions to a very unique circumstance. So I'm saying that the people who are thinking outside the box, we need to too. That's all I'm asking.
So I think to Mr. Craddock's point, if this is Ms. Dowdy and I'm joining you virtually, thanks for letting me chime in. I think Mr. Craddock is spot on. We're in a point now in education where we are in a business industry and we have competitors. And it's going to be our job to make sure that we're able to market our product and help parents to see that we still have a high quality product to offer them. And we know better now from the spring of last year, and it's on us to do better with the knowledge that we now have. So now that we know better, I expect that we will do better. And I think our teachers did an amazing job, and our support staff and our administrators, and they learned a lot, and they're ready to take what they learned and transform that remote learning into a better product moving forward. So I think the challenge is on Mr. Craddock for us to put that better product forward. And I think that our teachers are ready to rise to that challenge. Will it ever mimic what it's like to be in front of people? Absolutely not. We can never take that ability to hug a kid when they're sad and make that virtual. But we can make sure that we're providing those opportunities for that social interaction, both directly with the teacher and with each other in this virtual environment, so that our product does look better this go around. And I think that we're ready to rise to that challenge. And it's going to be a competitive market from here on forward for all of education markets across the world, for us to put a better product forward. And that's what we have to do.
Well, I appreciate that, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I just hope that, you know, I know some of these situations are going to be very challenging and difficult, but particularly like I want to make sure that these elementary kids and middle school kids, I want to make sure they still have PE. And if all they can be talking about is do 50 push-ups or maybe not that many or jumping jacks or whatever it is, I want them to do that stuff. I don't want them sitting around and the parents say, you know, I don't want them to be obese, and I don't want them to be in fear. I want it to be as normal as we can make it.
Well, and I speak often freely about the fact that I have a special needs child at home as well. And I too worry. It's much more difficult when you have a special education student to keep up with skills and make sure that they don't slide any further behind. And I was extremely pleased with the effort that was put forward last year with his special ed teachers. But we have to do that for all students. All students need that interaction daily. All students need that connection with one another, because for some kids, that's what drives them to keep coming to school. So again, I think that our folks are ready to rise to the challenge. We have amazing folks that work for us in Currituck County Schools, and these folks are poised and ready to rise to the challenge. I think they live in an anxious world because they were trying to figure out, how am I going to juggle plan B and some plan C? And once we have a set plan in place, I think they're ready to start rolling and putting the wheels in motion to put the best product forward.
Yes,
All right, well, due to the health and safety concerns that I have, my plan would be for option C, for our faculty and staff and their well-being, for safety and for their health. It would be plan C, and I would like to recommend that we revisit that every 9 weeks. So that would be my recommendation, and I'd also like to move that we vote on this on Monday, the 27th of July at 9:30 a.m. and have a meeting at that time virtually. Monday, the 27th at 9:30 a.m. Yvette, did you do Friday?
I did Friday, but
Okay.
Okay.
Can we change it to Monday at 9:30?
I just want to make sure that when we select Plan C, that we're going to have face-to-face time, and we're going to do everything we can to make it happen. And those teachers are going to be in that building, and they're going to do it just like they did it, but they're just going to be looking through a device.
We will provide, and I want to, please don't expect it on the 17th. Give us a little bit of time to get it up and moving, and that is where we're going to be.
17th and a half it is.
I would agree with Karen.
And I agree also, and of course, because it's only a work session, we can't, we are not gonna vote today, but that's gonna be our recommendation, and then we'll vote on it on Monday.
And I have mixed feelings about this. I'm hearing from teachers and parents. Teachers that want their kids there, they feel like they can't do the science remotely like they could in the classroom. But I could go along with Plan C. I would rather see it evaluated more frequently than 9 weeks.
We'll set it at 9, but we'll be reevaluating. If it makes sense to move that
Yeah,
up,
if we see things that improve, I'm all for.
I just, anyway.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, here's the thing, I would agree with you, because I think we're unfortunately going to have some other hiccups with these orders, if you will. So if they're already rolling out and working towards this, and they shut it down because you got one case and you got to close the whole building, then at least we're working to a common goal.
Yeah, we're not
And we're not
shifting gears
trying
in
to
the
do
middle
all
of it.
this.
Yeah.
That's what
And
makes
so,
it so difficult.
You know, and
Yeah,
believe
you
me,
just
I
give
don't
up
want
before you
that.
even
I
try.
don't even want that for my kids,
Right, right.
okay?
It's not
I don't
a,
want
Like to start one way and then immediately within 2 or 3 days have to change over and do something different. We need to start the way it's
Start the way, and I think
Knowing-
all of these teams that have been in place are doing a phenomenal job. I've been in on a couple of the meetings, and they are working hard to have a plan in place. And it is gonna be a group effort with the students, the families, the parents, grandparents, and teachers, but I think we can do it.
And
And,
could we consider the possibility, particularly at some of the elementary school level? I don't know how possible it would be at the middle and high school, but if there are kids that are struggling and they are needing special services, maybe we could have them in small groups
small
at times.
groups.
I don't know, but
That is possible.
you know, we need to really think outside the box and come up with something very creative.
I agree with that.
I think that would be
So
wonderful.
is the plan then for your weekly meetings now, since we've made this decision, we'll shift gears and start looking at that for the next,
The infrastructure.
okay.
Yeah, and putting this in place with the idea that we're gonna serve our most at-risk kids and then have move through. Is all, your ideas are great. I mean, absolutely fabulous discussion around kids and learning and attempting to do the best we can in a really tough situation here. And keeping in mind that, you know, the comments are student-centered, and that's great.
And I'd like them to have some kind of office hours so that if a kid is struggling, they can have, even if it's email, however they need to do it, so that they can speak directly with their teacher and get some help.
Yes, and that would be the plan. We have to we'll look at our days, what a student day and a staff day would look like at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. We'll start pulling some models from that have already started working through that, and we'll adapt the best model for Currituck schools.
Okay, that
Sounds
sounds
good.
So
good.
basically, we're gonna operate the building as if it would be without the student center, right?
That is going to be,
Okay.
again, as much as
Meaning, if you
possible.
need something from the school, you should be able to call and talk to somebody during the course of the school day,
Yeah.
That is correct.
okay?
Okay, all right. I would like to close the work session. I hope everybody has a great afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you.